Not long at all. So our lease is empty, so I did we took. Good. February board meeting. Like that, everyone was saying. Prayer.
There were names for the evening given to us and for this beautiful country. Pray to be with us now. Give us wisdom as we deliberate. Give us clarity of thought. Give us gentleness and courage. Your name.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Just a quick comment to my colleagues, just a reminder to put your microphones close to your mouth and you make sure they're on when we contribute to the meeting. That is great feedback from a couple folks, including our treasurer, Sayerda. It's difficult at times to hear what we're saying if we're not close to the mic. So thank you for helping our off-site visitors hear us. So with that, we do have the approval of the agenda. I'm going to make one suggestion or the one change to the agenda on 10D that we remove the business proposal per conversation with the manager. We don't need to discuss that at this meeting. So I'd like to make an amendment to remove 10D. Can I? I'll make that motion. Do I hear support? Thank you, Joan.
The minutes for the consent agreement probably be added.
Good point. Thank you. Yes, that's another agenda change. So that'd be 5B then, I would assume, for that agenda item. Duly noted. Thank you, Treasurer.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
I don't normally chime in on these things.
Please.
But I want to point out that items 12 and 13, both of which are closed sessions.
Yes.
There are two different attorney-client privileged opinion letters.
Okay.
I believe that you would be having tonight.
Yes. Okay.
You could combine them into one motion, one closed session instead of going in, coming back out, going in, coming back out. If you wanted to have just one motion, one item, you could combine 12 and 13.
Thank you, Dan. Let's finish up the one first. I didn't hear a motion to amend the agenda to add the minutes.
I'll support. Oh, I'll support.
Great. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. So that's 5B. And Dan Martin's suggestion to combine 12 and 13 closed sessions to make it more efficient. Do I hear a motion to support that consolidation? Great, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Any opposition? No. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, so Any others? Okay, let's see, let's see, additions, do we need to get final approval of the whole thing now with all the changes? Or we should. Okay, probably should. We have three changes. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as amended? We have three of them. Just want to make sure we're all on board. Great, thank you. Great, thank you. Okay, any additions? Okay, thank you. All in favor of that motion to change the agenda as it stands?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, great. All right, so moving on. Thank you. We have a little cleanup there on the agenda. Thank you. All right, so approval of the consent agenda, which now includes 2 minutes. The approval from our last meeting, January 16, and now the approval of our minutes of the meeting we had this afternoon, the budget meeting, which you have received a copy. If we want to pause for a moment for a quick glance through that, we can pause and see if there's any edits to that. So I'm going to pause for a moment, and when you nod, we'll move on.
I just have one comment.
Please.
Char's name was spelled wrong, but I let Danielle know that.
All right. Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Joan, see anything? Oh, good. All right. Okay, so we have approval of consent agenda with A and B minutes, payment of the bills. Do I hear a motion to for the consent agenda? Approve the consent agenda. Great. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, hearing none. Good. All right. Through that little stuff there. Great. So now we move on to public comment. So we're going to move from the left to the right. We have two. My colleagues have heard this before. We're going to move into the first of our two public comment periods. We appreciate your participation in the meeting this evening. You have the right to address the board on any issue you'd like. It's your time for public comment. We will respectfully listen, yet not engage in conversation. It may seem odd, but we do have an agenda in township business to attend to. If you desire further discussion on your topic, please schedule an appointment with our township manager, Howard Fink. If this is awkward, please contact myself, Steve Spoolhawk. In order to keep the meeting moving, please limit your comments to two to 3 minutes, and we'll move on. Thank you in advance for keeping your comments respectful and helpful. Thank you. So on the left side, I'll start at the front row. Len, no? Okay. Next row. All right, please.
Hi, I'm Myron Kukla. I live on Lakeshore Drive here in Park Township. Wanted to bring to the attention of Park Township Board administrators that there are a number of dead or dying trees and tree limbs along the bike path on Lakeshore Avenue. There are at least 24 dead trees dangerously close to the bike path between Tunnel Park and 1 mile south. You can tell the dead trees even in winter. They're barkless and they've been hollowed out by bugs. The path is used by hundreds, thousands in the summer of residents and visitors, some with children and strollers. I don't personally want to get killed by one of these falling trees or have a walker killed or see a child hurt on the bike path when a tree suddenly collapses. Now, I've seen one of these dead trees fall. Happened about 3 years ago right by my driveway. There's no more warning. It just goes and falls down. There's no chance to avoid it at all. 2 dead trees, in fact, sit directly across from my mailbox. I think I've sent you photos of that. And I drive up to my mailbox now and don't get out of my car because I'm afraid one is going to collapse on me. I called an administrator in Park Township in September and was told the township has 56 miles of bike path, and we, quote, we can't take care of every dead tree. It would cost a fortune to do that. Well, I took a tour of most of the township bike paths, and most look good or on private lands. And if there's a danger of and you can order the person to have it fixed. My main point is to ask the township board to authorize like $5,000, take care of dead trees and huge dead overhanging branches on the bike path for the safety of everyone. That small amount should be sufficient because in most cases, a tree doesn't have to be cut up and hauled away and just be cut and dropped on the grass or on the hillside. So I'm actually the board of trustees look into this dangerous situation and fix it before someone gets killed. I encourage you to take a walk along that bike path south of Tunnel Park and count the number of trees dead that are, one of them's as big as this podium sitting 5 feet from the bike path. So if you would do that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I sign in here?
If you would like. Yeah, if you would like, that's right.
I've already sent you emails.
You said your name. You're in the minutes. Thank you. All right. Back road, any comment? All right, going to the right side. All right, no comments. All right, with that, we'll close our public hearing and move on to our next item, mission, vision, and values. And I apologize, I don't have that in front of me, so we'll move on. Unless you have it. Is it in fact? I apologize. Might not be. Yep. I apologize.
That's okay.
Yep. The park plan. So it's a good reminder.
On the wall.
It's on the wall.
Nice.
There you go.
To the wall.
Yes, you're on the wall. Yeah, thanks, Howard.
And,
I just looked
So
over.
our vision is that Park Township is a family-friendly, connected community that values our natural features, agricultural character, and recreation opportunities. Our mission is that we proactively listen and lead, providing services and amenities while carefully stewarding our resources. And our values are integrity, respect, and genuine.
Great. Thank you, Howard. With that in mind, we'll begin our agenda. Thank you. Department reports. Some of those are pretty exciting. And is there any comments or questions about the department reports on that you had buzzed through?
I got a question.
Sure.
Chief, when you report a medical call, what does that typically involve?
What a medical call is a person that is calling for a request for a medical response. Could be anything from a limp disease to a cardiac arrest.
And how many would you say, just rough guess, go to the hospital after your medical call?
60-70%.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
So
Great. Sure. I just want to make a comment about the report from the Ottawa County of Ottawa Sheriff's Office and the data and this more of the information on here. And I appreciate the kind of encouragement. Is this a type of thing that we can post onto our website? Because I think the new snowplow law, with the amount of snow that we've had and the intensity of the snow plows on it, it was just a good reminder. I personally did not recognize that I need to be 200 feet behind a snow plow. But unless you're passing.
Hey, Jeff. Officer Jones, if you don't mind helping hold me accountable, just remind me to talk with Julie to have that on the website, and then we'll also have it on the online newsletter the next time it goes out. That's snowplow law. Thanks. I appreciate it.
But some of these public service announcements are actually very important for our community to know. And so thank you for putting that on there. I'll read it for the public record this time, just so we can remind ourselves as we go home tonight. Snowplows drive slowly, stop and exit frequently, and occasionally overlap lanes. A new Michigan law requires drivers to maintain a distance of at least 200 feet, about 12 car lengths, while driving behind snowplows that have their lights on and are actively salting, sanding, or plowing roads. This rule does not apply when drivers are attempting to pass a snowplow. The law also requires drivers to stop at least 20 feet behind a snowplow at an intersection. Violation of the law results in a $100 fine. Good to know. Good to know, especially during the winter. So, but I think these, as it relates to our colleagues in the fire department and in the sheriff department, if there's things that we can help you communicate to the public, please do that. We send out a weekly or biweekly email.
It's not a set time. It's about every other week. We try to get one out every other week, and sometimes it's every week.
Yeah.
If you are not on it, shameless plug, please be on it. Many ways you can sign up. All of our staff should have a link at the bottom of their email. So if you get any emails from us, you should see it. It's on our homepage at the very bottom of the homepage. If you come into the office, there's a sign up sheet. If you're not on the online newsletter, you're not getting all the information as to what's going on in Park Township.
Great. That's a good plug. All right. Any other comments as you had reviewed the reports from our team departments? Hearing none, we'll continue on. Thank you. All right. The public hearing on the Parks and Recreation 5-year master plan.
Yes, sir. So in front of you is on your dais, or not on your dais, but in your packet is the Parks and Rec master plan. For the board packet, we didn't print all the appendices. It is online. It has been available. We've received some comments. And so we've made those as part of the record. So when you approve the master plan, if you can approve the public comments that go with it. Mr. Spoolhoff, once I'm done with my comments, if you don't mind opening it up for a public hearing, you'll go ahead and open the public hearing, ask for any comments on the plan, and then close the public hearing if you don't have any. And then following that, further down, you'll see approval of the plan. And just as when you approve that plan, just approve that plan with the comments that we've received back, which we have on record, and we've already made changes to the plan as it relates to some of those comments. One of the things that is in the plan, I'll give you the quick 30-second overview. It is mostly a document that is required for the Department of Natural Resources in order to write grants for the township. This is a major focus almost every single year of our grant writing efforts. This upcoming year, we might not do any grant writing, but in years past, we've consistently wrote 3 to 4 major grants a year. If you are aware of the process of a DNR grant, it is very lengthy. You can speak with Danielle, Connie, myself, and others in our profession that do this. We've been very successful in getting grants. This year we have 2 grants, a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant and a Natural Resources Trust Fund grant, both for infrastructure out on the community park. One of them is in jeopardy because of the funding at the federal government, but we'll get to that later. The plan itself is reflective of our vision and goals and values for our Parks Department. Some key areas is that we are moving to a much more robust park system, and so that is already in process. The other thing that is highlighted in the plan is our focus on nature and our focus on environmental sustainability and conservation. One of the things that you all know about is the work we've done with ODC. We have approved the contract with ODC to begin the invasive species protection in our community parks, and we will continue that. In the plan, each park has its own action plan and has its own elements of things that we'd like to see happen. There are lots of things that are not in the plan. For example, one of the things that was identified earlier is we really need to do a analysis of what properties we want to acquire. What is our land acquisition strategy? If we have, for example, a road end, do we want to try to identify a first right of refusal next to the road end so that at a certain time in the future, it can be a little bit bigger and provide a little bit more access to the water? So there are elements in that plan that are not that we know that we have that are not in that plan. As we continue to build out our Parks and Rec department, this is going to be a much more significant focus of our efforts. And in particular, the programming around our Parks and Rec department is going to be a huge focus in the next few years in terms of what we target, whether it's pickleball, whether it's arts, whether it's concerts and things of that nature. So in front of you is, I believe, a great document. It was done in-house, so it didn't cost the taxpayers any additional monies. A document like this is probably about $40,000 to $50,000 in terms of a consulting fee. It was done 4 or 5 years ago in-house by myself. It was again updated this time in-house. And as we continue to build out our parks staff will continue to improve upon it. With that, I'll open it up for the board with any questions and then ask that you open the public hearing.
Any comments or questions from the board on the document? I just want to make an observation. I think one of the most important pages is 151, and the goal number 1 on the overall goals and objectives: provide a variety of year-round recreation facilities, programs, and opportunities for individuals of all ages and abilities to meet the present and future recreational needs of Park Township residents. And that is our overriding principal goal for what we do with the parks. So thank you for very articulately saying that. All right, seeing none from my colleagues here, I'll open it up for public comment. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to comment on our recreation master plan? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment.
Public hearing.
Public hearing. Yep, sorry, public hearing. Thank you. We'll close the public hearing.
Thank you.
And at this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Parks and Recreation 5-year master plan.
Skip. Because it's going to be instead of.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yes, sir.
Are we able to? Yeah.
You didn't amend your agenda?
Oh, wait. Oh, wait.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your precision there, Jim. We'll wait until we get to B. All right. Thank you. We'll close that. All right. So we are now on to letter A for our action plan. Celtic Festival.
However you'd like to.
He said I could go both ways. We would have lost to Celtics, but that's a different deal.
And I always say Celtic, but there's actually a Scottish football team called the Celtics. So go figure. I guess it's either or, potato. My name's Craig Rich. This is Pete Grimm. We are kind of the co-founders and 2 of the board members of the Holland Waterfront Celtic Festival and the Highland Games. And we are here. You should have in your packet some information on the liquor license request. It is a multi-stage process where we have to get approval, obviously, from the venue, which is in your jurisdiction. We also have to rent the venue, and then we have to go to the sheriff and get that approval. Then we have to go to the state, and for a whole $25 a day, you can get a liquor license. It's really a very affordable thing, but I just have a few comments I'd like to, time consuming, but affordable. I have a few comments I'd like to direct and turn this into a little bit of a commercial because I know you do get some viewership. So we are representing the Holland Waterfront Celtic Festival in support of our application for a temporary liquor license at the fairgrounds for the 4th annual event. It's coming up on June 21 and 22. We are a 501c3 nonprofit corporation formed in 2001, right out of COVID, with a group of individuals. Many of us have some or a lot of Irish or Scottish ancestry. I actually have some Welsh as well. And we used to only participate once a year in the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and we thought, there's more we can do, and there are all kinds of things we can do. And we enjoyed traveling to some of the other Highland games throughout Michigan, and there were 4 or 5 of those throughout the state. But these types of festivals are held across Michigan in towns like Alma, Alpena, Kalamazoo, the Detroit area, Muskegon, Saline, and Sparta, and they all do things a little bit different, but our main goal is to bring people together to have fun in their own community, give them one more reason to celebrate. So our 4th annual festival is a follow-up to our, I want to say highly successful, but if you remember, it was about 3 miles that way, and it was about 95 degrees. It's always cooler near the lake. So that way, I guess. And so it was, there were a lot of weather people on TV telling people don't go outside or you might burst into flames. So we did have a drop in our crowd last year. We were down by about 20 to 25%, which, digs into our income and all of that as well, but did not dampen the fun at all because it didn't even rain really that day until about 11:15 at night. Our festival is very eclectic. We have hundreds of people walking around in kilts. I know some of you have been there. Music comes from everywhere, it seems. We have 19 bands coming in this year. Highland athletes are tossing the caber and throwing heavy weights, and it's just a real spectacle. And it's all family oriented and it's all fun, but we do have an Irish pub. We have an area where you can purchase alcohol, and I want to make sure that you know that we do a lot to assure the safety of folks at our festival. We're very serious about it. We certify all of our volunteer servers through the state-approved alcohol management system called TIPS. We run the Michigan State Police criminal background checks on all of our volunteers who handle alcohol. We hire an Ottawa County Sheriff Deputy to be on site the entire festival. We hire overnight security to make sure nobody makes off with anything from the festival. We scan IDs before we put a 21 and over bracelet on each person, and then and only then attendees may purchase alcohol at the festival. We are here to answer any questions you might have and to assure you that your approval will lead to a safe and hopefully successful event this year. We should pray for no rain. We are on, like I said, we're right on June 20, which is the summer solstice, longest day of the year. I wish the noise ordinance went till midnight, but I'm sure the neighbors appreciate that it's 11 p.m. and we have never exceeded the noise ordinance even by a second. Any questions? Did y'all go last year?
I was not either. I didn't make it.
Yeah, it's something we hope that everybody will put on their calendar and plan on. We're working with the fairgrounds right now to work on a new layout, and it's going to be bigger and hopefully better. So we appreciate your hearing us out and look forward to approval.
Yeah. I think you saw a couple of us putting it on our calendar. So
there you go. That's good.
I missed it last year, but I look forward to going this year.
Appreciate it.
It's a great event.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
This is just a simple, not simple approval, but we do have, I think it's a roll call, or I see a resolution here.
Most likely, voice vote,
Most-
unless you want.
What?
If you want to, you can always do a roll call anytime you ever want.
I'm trying to think.
Only time you have to do a roll call is for an ordinance.
Oh, I thought it was a roll call, but anyway.
And for certain closed session purposes.
Okay.
Thank you for that ad.
Good. All right. So any questions, observations about the liquor license application from our friends from the Celtic Festival?
Just gonna make one comment. I'm sure it's a great festival, but in these circumstances, I always vote no. We have never changed our ordinance yet. Right now it stands that we don't allow alcohol on our property. And that's the reason I'll be voting no. And I think we need to look at that ordinance and make sure to change the wording.
Yeah. Good point. Thank you, Treasurer Steger. I'm trying to think, how could we discuss that in a way at the next meeting, not this meeting, but in the future?
We can put it on the agenda for.
Put it on the agenda and have this review of the policy.
It's an ordinance.
It's an ordinance.
So it's an ordinance and it's
Talking
also
to-
related.
Talking to them. Yes.
Right. So it's twofold. There's two things that exist. One is an ordinance that says that there's no alcohol to be allowed on township property. And so that would want to be looked at from a policy perspective. And then it's also a contractual arrangement between the township and the fairgrounds. So both things we can have a conversation of at the next board meeting from a policy perspective. And then depending on what the board wishes, we can come back the following meeting with changes to an amended contract after we talk with the fair board, or to potentially change the policy of the township. It's not a zoning ordinance. I believe it's a police powers ordinance, so it wouldn't necessarily have to go in front of the planning commission. Is that right, Dan?
It's my recollection is dealing with public property. It's not the zoning use of land.
Correct.
So as a general powers ordinance, it would not have to go through the planning commission.
General powers, not police powers. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Same
Good.
thing.
Yeah.
Good. I think let's put on the agenda. Good for the March meeting. Yes.
I can remember the very first beer tent they had out there. The ordinance did get changed to read that no alcohol is allowed on any Park Township property. And then there was an exception that said, except for the Ottawa County Fairgrounds during the week of the fair.
Okay.
So it would still have to be changed yet.
There you go.
But on that same note, I just want to make everybody aware that the fair board did approve this unanimously.
Great. Super. Thank you, Lon.
I'll make a motion, we approve the liquor license.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll support. Okay, go ahead.
Great. Thank you. All right, the motion is on the floor to approve the liquor license for the Celtic Festival as it stands. And duly noted Jan's question or challenge on that, and then we'll take it up in March. So all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you. Great.
Look forward to your support. next
Great.
Consistent.
Well, thank you. Again, I appreciate Treasurer Stata's precision, and I think it's something we should take care of. So thank you for bringing that up, Jan. All right. Moving on to the next item is the request for approval of the Parks and Recreation 5-year plan. We just had a discussion and hearing on this. Do I hear a motion to approve the recreation plan?
Including the comments received.
There wasn't.
Well, we have a few emails.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, including the comments that were received via email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good. Thank you. Great. All right. Super. We got a motion on the floor to approve the plan with the comments that Manager Fink has received on the plan. So all in favor of the right next to you.
No, she didn't second.
I was gonna ask a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I didn't second it. Oh, I thought you seconded.
It's okay.
I apologize. I thought you were.
We don't need to be here till 11.
Yeah, no, please ask the question.
I only skimmed through all of the items and I know we've broken it down by park. But when we got to the area where they had given data on the surveys with the amount of people owning dogs, I know we've gotten plenty of complaints on Virginia Park on dog off leash problems.
Oh.
I didn't know if that's in here to put more signage up. And in addition, we've seen the same problem at Winston and Went Park. So I was just wondering I didn't know if it was part of this plan or if it should be something else outside of this.
It is not. It's too granular of an issue, but we hear that issue and we'll work on signs for dogs on leashes. We do have signs. We should have signs at every park for dogs on leashes. But we'll talk with you directly and see maybe specifically where and location wise, but something like that, you wouldn't necessarily put too granular. If you only had one park, you might put that kind of level of detail, but with what we have, we don't.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
And just make sure and follow up with me about where.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Schoolhoff.
Yep, thanks, sure. All right. Motion on the floor is from Jim. Any support for that motion? Thank you, Lauren. All right, all in favor of the motion to approve the Parks and Recreation 5-year master plan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna pass the ball to Manager Fink about the resolution to opt out of 2011.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
if you recall, sorry.
yeah, all you.
So if you recall, a few months ago, you graciously allowed us a little bit of extra resources for our health insurance. And because of that, we went over the hard cap. And so to be compliant with PA 152, which is a little silly these days because PA 152 doesn't have really any teeth anymore. There's no penalty for non-compliance, but the law still requires that if you're not in compliance or you're above the hard caps, you should have a vote to opt out of PA 152, which basically means as a board that you've agreed that your health insurance contribution is above the hard cap limits. We use the hard caps as opposed to the 80-20. Now I might argue that if we analyzed it based on the 80-20, we might actually be in compliance. But because we go based on the hard caps as a policy, you guys went over the hard caps and we are no longer in compliance with PA 152. So therefore, you have to identify and vote via resolution that you've opted out of PA 152. And I can explain more if you would like to know what PA 152 is and why it exists and why it no longer has teeth. I think I've gone over that a few times.
All right, thank you, Manager Fink. Any questions or comments on 152 and our vote on this? All right. Roll call. Okay, resolution.
Need a motion?
Need a motion, please.
Public Act 152.
Great. Thank you, Tricia. Oh, here support.
I'll support.
Thanks, Sharon. All right, any further comments on this resolution? Okay, hearing none. John.
Yes.
Trustee Gerard.
Yes.
Treasurer
Yes.
Trustee Sernick.
Yes.
Clerk Sarah, yes, and Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Based on the yeses, the motion passes. Thank you. All right. All right, so we're into the discussion and possible action items. So the next item on the list is a job description for the Parks and Recreation Director. So I'm going to pass the ball to Manager Fink and have him explain what we're discussing or approving. Thank you.
Yeah, so what you're approving is twofold. You're approving the job description. Know that as any job description goes, you can have changes because there's the little asterisk that basically says and duties as assigned. I'm trying to find the document here.
245, anyone?
Thank you. I should be able to get to it, but use this quicker. I thank you.
Yep.
Didn't back down in here. So there's an asterisk there at the bottom on page 246. All of their duties as assigned. It lays out the basic essential functions of the new Parks and Rec Director. We've set the pay range to be competitive and find some really good leadership in this area. We have operated for quite some time off of a very bare bones park staff. In the past, we've had one Parks employee. Actually, in the beginning, that one Parks employee was part-time. We had a very, very part-time director. Danielle held that role. And I think that was 10 hours a week, if not less. And it was just more of an oversight type of thing. For the last 4 or 5 years, the township has operated under a team approach to Parks and Rec planning. And that team consists of myself, it used to be Danielle, Connie, Ryan, and now it will be Jordan. As we move past the sort of evolution of a more passive recreation department and we begin to think about what does recreation planning, what does recreation programming, what does a high level of service and an excellent recreation program look like for Park Township? We need leadership in that department. And so this position is the first step into finding who that person is and identifying that leadership and building out best capacity. This is not the only position. We will come back with a second position at some point, but we crawl, we walk, then we run. And so first, we want to get a leader in there and begin to set that vision and begin to work on what does the future look like. And then there's no question that this ties into the work that the committee that Brian and Len have done on the community facility, the community center, and the work that they've done. So with that, take any questions if you want to go over the details of the job, if you want to understand, at a high level what this person does, we can talk through that. The range is 75 to 100,000. That's going to generate some nice applications, and I think some good quality folks.
Any comments or questions on this position?
I didn't read it specifically, but is this person in charge of the maintenance department?
No, but this person is in charge of the facilities of the parks. And so there's going to have to be some recognition that if this person says, for example, hey, we need to get X field resolved or taken care of, then that becomes a priority. But no, in terms of staffing, this person is not in charge of the maintenance department.
One observation just in the last 3 months that I've been on the job, I have observed that our manager takes a large portion of his time in this area, and this would be a hire that helps our manager do his role within the time he has. Like, for instance, the 5-year master plan was really his to update. And we need to have someone on our team who actually lives this document, owns that document, and implements that document. And we can't update it. And we can't have our manager be the pseudo
Parks and Rec
director. And so this is a pretty important role within the scope of our township.
This is a person that is going to be in charge of writing grants. Not to say that Connie and I wouldn't assist and we wouldn't offer our advice and counsel and feedback and vision, but this is a person that's going to be in charge of writing grants. This is a person that's going to be in charge of updating infrastructure. This is a person that's going to be looking at the asset management plan as it relates to the Parks Department and identifying what are priorities and how are those priorities implemented over a period of time. This person is going to look at recreation programming. Our new hire to my left here, Jordan, has done a phenomenal job in the month that I've worked with her. And so, we've got a good foundation to it, but this person has got a lot of work cut out for them, and there's going to need to put their track shoes on because we want an excellent, robust system. And I just want to be clear, guys, we still only have 2 full-time people. And so if we compare that to, for example, a Zeeland Recreation or a Holland Charter Township Recreation, a Zeeland Recreation that's coordinated with the school millage that they have in school recreation, it's probably 10, 15 people. And we're not talking about part-time people. We're talking about many full-time folks. Holland Charter Township, probably 3 or 4. So we're building it, but we're setting the vision, we're casting that vision, and we're going to cast that vision for excellence.
I think the challenge for this particular person is to prove the value of leadership on this topic in our township. And so, I think we have to prove that we can be an active recreation program before we really start spending significant money on buildings and infrastructure. We have to prove to people that there's value in recreation and us running it. So this is the first step.
Well said.
Okay, so any comments, questions on the job description? Jim, you had
I just had one other.
One other, please.
I don't see anywhere where it talks about grant writing. Is that on here? Did I miss it?
might fall under all other duties assigned.
Could be.
Well,
We can
in
add
which
that.
case,
Yeah, why don't you,
under basic knowledge or skills, either.
no, why don't you amend that, please?
Okay. That grant writing. Hey, amended to the job description is add grant writing. Good. All right. Thank you, Jim, for the observation. Any others?
This individual is going to report to Howard.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are we ready?
And then one other C, I just want to point out, I apologize, Mr. Chair, if I may. I just want to point out number 9. Okay. This is not ideal. Ideally, farmland preservation lies in Miss Mika's department in community development, but given the capacity, if we really dive into the issue of farmland preservation, just like other types of planning elements, you could justify a position for farmland preservation. But given that farmland preservation often has an overlap with conservation easements and with open space preservation, particularly, the feel of the look and feel of your community, and in particular the conservation easement side of it, I thought at least from an interim basis, this person could act as some level of staff to that committee. Mika and I will still be there for support and for leadership on that issue. But certainly that can be a little bit of extra capacity if we really get moving on that. So that's the rationale for that being there.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, the rest of it too.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, hearing none, we're going to take a vote on the position to approve the position. So I hear a motion to approve the position that the manager Fink has presented this evening with the one caveat added about grant writing on there on the job responsibilities. So do I hear a motion for that? So I'll support it. I see it, so I can support that, please. All right, with that in mind, I'll take a vote. I'm sorry, please, please.
How does this affect the budget?
It is included in the budget.
All right, in the budget. Thank you, Jim. All right, ready for a vote? Any further questions, discussions? No,
Pretty sure.
all right, all in favor of the position of going out for a hire of a Parks and Recreation Director. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, the position has been approved. Thank you, Howard, and
thank you to the board. It's a big decision, and I appreciate your commitment to this.
If anyone from the trustee team would like to be like a final look at the candidate, please ask, in the interview process, can we actually meet the person before you do the final hire? Would that be possible?
I don't know that necessarily is a conversation for the board meeting. I think that's more of a
Process.
Yeah, I think that's more of a process conversation. I mean, clearly the board has to approve the hire, but any kind of that's a process conversation.
Okay.
So
No, I just was thinking that'd be interesting to meet the person before they get hired on. So good. Going on to 11B as in boy, federal funding update. I think we all have seen some interesting things in the news. I think all of us have received a little note from our manager about federal funding being challenged. But what's the latest, Manager Fink?
So in terms of the latest, there is none. I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen. I think what I would say is this is not political I'm not making any political statements in any way, shape, or form at all. I don't think anybody knows what is happening right now with respect to the funding freeze. I would say that that's accurate at all levels of government. We just heard the mayor of the city of Grand Rapids say the same thing, and when asked a similar question, we just don't know what's going to happen. And so, yeah, it's a wait and see approach. I would, if I may, Mr. Chair, I might ask Mr. Martin if he has any more recent information. I'm sure as a firm with the school district, he's, I'm sure, getting questions and calls from his clients as well.
Yeah, I do not.
You don't?
With that said, thank you. We'll flip to the second page of our agenda. I had the privilege of being in a meeting recently with Senator Victory and Representative DeBoer and representatives from the park, the DNR in Howard, and the chief. And we were talking about water safety and in particular lifeguard support at the Hound State Park. I suggested we just to Manager Fink, this is why it's on the board, that we just give an update on where that might be. That's a pretty, not pretty, it's a very important topic that resides within our township. And you know, that park serves a lot of folks, visitors and residents alike, but we ought to be aware of what's going on. It's not in our budget. You know, we don't, we aren't part of that team, but our team is supporting it. There's a cross-functional team, but I just like to 2-3 minute update on where that might be and where it's going.
Yeah, so we had a great meeting. And what I would say is that one of the people who really led in that meeting, in addition to myself and the chief, is a gentleman by the name of Greg Fields. And Greg is a gentleman who has a PhD in the area of water safety and does some work with some groups and some organizations in Park Township. And so has been a tireless advocate for not only lifeguards, but for additional water safety in Park Township and up and down the shoreline and within Lake Michigan and all of the Great Lakes. What I would say is I think that the primary barrier to any pilot project, and let me be very clear, we directly asked Senator Victory and Representative DeBoer and others from the DNR if a pilot project was feasible. We floated the idea of that pilot project being run through the township's fire department. Where I think this lies is whether or not the Department of Natural Resources will even allow it. I think that, you know, the chief and Mr. Fields called me very shortly thereafter and said, you know, should we start putting together a budget? And my response to the both of them was, you're certainly welcome to have some conversations and do some calculations as to what you think that might look like. And it doesn't have to be every day, you know, it doesn't have to be Monday through, you know, 7 days a week. As Mr. Spoolhoff had suggested, it could be a weekend type of situation. But nonetheless, where we're at is, will the Department of Natural Resources allow for that pilot program to occur? Because what's ultimately going to happen is if we end up doing it and if it ends up being successful, then there's going to be questions and requests for other communities and other state parks to have similar types of programs. And we think one of the ways in order to move this forward is to do it through the fire department, because one of the things that you're going to run into roadblocks is the state's going to say either one, we don't have the money, or two, we don't want to add to that level of liability. And frankly, liability is an issue of risk and money as well. So, you know, running it through the fire department, which would have governmental immunity protection from a first responder in our own community, and given the efforts that we have in water safety, it's and it makes a lot of sense. I think ultimately we're gonna have to press, and if the board wants to, move on this from a political perspective, press the Department of Natural Resources to allow this, and whether or not they will or not. And I think that's frankly where it stands. I think this is kind of a conversation that will likely get to the governor's desk.
Yeah.
This is not an insignificant project. This is a big deal. So is that a good summary?
That's good. My first impression, the higher it goes up into some of these organizations, the slower the decision process gets and the more difficult it gets. And so I'm not optimistic that we'll see anything happen this year. Next year, who knows? But the stat that caught my ears, and I have repeated it quite a number of times, 80 to 100 folks drowned in the Great Lakes in Michigan, on Michigan shoreline every year. That's not insignificant. That's a significant number, of which unfortunately some are at the Holland State Park and beyond. So that's a real number. And I think that we have to, as public servants, continually push for a solution to help that number go down. So with that, we'll move on. Okay.
I guess I
sorry,
just have one concern. I obviously grown up in Michigan. I don't understand the concern. I guess my concern would be pulling the chief from our township with what all he's doing and potentially putting him on a project. Doesn't that not harm the township?
Good question. Good question.
I mean, we're still trying to get our water safety going here, and to go on that big of a project, I don't think that's beneficial to the township.
And I don't want to speak for the chief. Chief, please.
Yeah, definitely the concern, it is kind of being earmarked under our Marine Division, which is under the umbrella of the fire service. One thing that we know, and this has been long term, any type of pilot program coming out of the state or the federal government, the reason they want to run it under a municipality umbrella in that is because the infrastructure that's put together, the management of how that goes. Our fire service here reports to Howard, which reports back to the board. So there's a level of professionalism in being able to maintain those funds, and there's checks and balances for that. And so if you're looking from the state, and that's what both the representatives said there, instead of running it under a private thing like that, they would like to run it under a more of a municipality, simply because of the checks and balances that go through the budget process and the accountability of, remember, these would be taxpayers' funds that is going to sponsor the pilot program. So that is really one of the key points of trying to put it under there.
But
Yeah, and it might be to our benefit to figure it out over the next year. If we were to say 2026 is a year that there might be actually a pilot program funded by ideally state dollars. They allow us a year to figure out how you would recruit young men and women beyond even the fire team to supplement your team. I mean, to expect your team to cover this would be, that's not reasonable.
Yeah, no, we would be pulling. Sometimes people would be doing this. I mean, that's not our goal.
No.
From what standard.
But we haven't, to your point, Jim, we haven't figured, I don't think the chief and the team have figured out how to actually staff it up. I mean,
Right, we're working on different pilot looks at different things.
But I think I just want to acknowledge, I'm hearing you, Trustee Gerard, and I'm hearing you from the perspective of we only have so much capacity, and you are correct. This is meetings, this is analysis, this is debate, this is coordination, and I hear that, and I think that there's a lot of validity to that comment. So thank you for it.
want to make a comment, we may then get requests for Kennel Park also.
Correct.
Good.
So just to keep that
Yep.
in the back of your mind.
Sure. Great, thank you. All right, on to the next item, D, board direct phone numbers. I just wanted to have a quick discussion. This is something new. The phone system has allowed us to have, each of us have a phone number. I just want to make sure this is in some sense a privacy issue. I don't want to end up putting a number on everyone's phone or email without you knowing that this could happen or even want it to happen. Our current systems is such that, or we can, and this, I have it on my phone, is that a person can go to my line at the township and it gets translated into an email or transcribed into an email and sent to my email. Okay. We have the ability to put all the trustees on that system. I just want to make you aware that that is available. I want to make sure that you're nodding and saying, I want that. In the 3 months I've had that feature on my phone, I've received 1 legit call, voicemail, and 2 spams. It's not like I'm a supervisor getting many calls. Fortunately, maybe they don't know my number. I haven't publicized it yet, but I haven't, the voicemail aspect hasn't been highly used. I just don't want to put that burden on the trustees if you don't want it. And so I want one last check before Julie came to me and said, just this week, said, hey, well, here's the list and here's the process that's we're going to implement it. I said, well, before you do it, I want to ask. So
I've had it for years. And as treasurer, I get quite a few emails.
Okay.
You know, it doesn't ring on my phone, but I get an email that I can see and I can respond or have my deputy respond to it.
Okay.
It's very helpful for my purpose.
For your office, I think a supervisor, clerk, and treasurer should have that capability. But before I said to Jim, Shar, Brian, and Lauren, you're gonna get voicemails off your phone number that you don't use. I want to make sure that you say you're okay with it, or just say, you know what? No,
Phone
thank you.
doesn't ring at all. You just get an email.
Yeah, so
Through the township.
through the township.
I'm okay with it, but the only problem I see with it is when you get that recording in your voicemail and you go to answer it and you dial them back on your own phone, now they have your other number anyway.
Right, but there is a way around that.
Is there?
There's absolutely a way around that.
So we
And
can
you,
dial
you,
in and use that.
well, because you have multiple numbers on your phone, right?
Yeah, we have Ring Central, whatever.
Exactly. So, and you can dial from a different number, right? So like just in the same vein, you can set up a Google Voice number and have your phone dial back from that Google Voice number. And I think, although I haven't asked, I imagine there might even be a way through, because the phone system is not just a phone system, it's a computer system. And so I imagine that if we call Kinetics, there might be a simple way to resolve that for folks if they don't want, when they call back on their cell phone, if they want it to come from either a hidden number or, they don't want their personal cell phone number to be published, right? Because that's what you're wanting to protect.
Or you can always just have it blocked too. You can set your
Right.
for
So
that, but I would imagine with today's technology, there's got to be a way to show up your number that they called you on.
Correct.
Again, I just, maybe I'm oversensitive to the subject, but I didn't want to put something on your system.
As long as it shows up in the email, I don't care.
Okay. All right.
And there's no additional cost, or is it
Like
very
$1
minimal?
a month or like
Okay.
$1 at 6 months. I mean, you're talking, when we looked at this, if it was $100 per person a month, and I wouldn't have done it, but it's just a computer program number thingy.
Yeah, I don't object. If there's a work instruction, I would like to see that.
All right. Okay. Enough said. It will be implemented and we'll send a note out. Julie will send a note out how that all works. So,
Perfect.
all right. Thank you. All right. We're now into 12-13 combined 12. And I will state this pursuant to section 818 of the Open Meetings Act to consider a confidential opinion letter from our attorney, subject to the attorney-client privilege, which is exempt from the discussion or disclosure by section 13(1)(g) of the Freedom of Information Act. And we do have to take a roll call vote on this, I believe. So, okay.
I'll support.
Okay, there we go. And Joan, there we go.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
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 Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Supervisor School.
Yes. Okay, great. So we will go into closed session. Thank you.
Good session.
Great. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Great, thank you. Thank you, Dan, for that session. So we're back out of closed session and we need to make a action about an item that was discussed then. And it's about the insurance settlement. Would anybody like to make a motion on that item? And I guess as to the public, for the public's benefit, do we need to explain what that settlement might be? Okay,
Yes.
We're shaking our heads. So in summary, the team, the two groups went into mediation 2 weeks ago. We came into a settlement agreement. And today we are acknowledging that the agreement is for $4.7 million. And we have a request or on the table is to have a formal document created such that both parties agree to that final settlement of $4.7 million.
And so the public knows it's regarding the community center
Great,
at the
thank you.
fairgrounds fire.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Jen. All right. Okay, so with that on the table, do I hear a motion to accept the resolution to move towards documentation of that settlement?
So moved.
All right, there we go. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. So is it in your court now, Dan, to develop that document?
It's in Tim Deemer's court ultimately,
Okay,
but yeah, it'll be done very quickly, I'm sure.
okay, all right.
Fantastic. The second. Because two people said
Oh.
make a motion and it was simultaneous, so you gotta choose one as the second.
I did.
Okay. Very
I
good.
can second.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we move into number 16, public comment. Any
You
public
you
comment?
skipped the manager's report.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry. I bunched over. I'm sorry.
I do want to say earlier in terms of the Parks and Rec director that under the policy, the manager is the personnel administrator of the township. You know, Stevie said was okay, but it's important to explain both the new board and to the current board how personnel policy works. If you were to bring a person in front of the board, you are creating a vastly different policy. I have no problem if that's something that you guys want to debate moving forward, or if there's a change in how you want to do personnel administration, but ultimately I will not be bringing that person in front of the board. I will be informing the board of who I end up choosing. There'll be a committee that will be put together for hiring that person and evaluating that talent. But I just wanted to be clear on that earlier. That was a question. And so I just wanted you to be aware of that. Or if you wish, you could refer back to the policy.
Sure.
I think in general, that's a very good policy that reinforces professional administration and management. So that with that, one of the things that Supervisor Spoolhoff had encouraged and inquired on is, and what we're working on is having Calvin College students to help us with an analysis of the Parks and Rec department, if you will, and do some research around what that potentially looks like in terms of programming and in terms of best management practices. I have really attempted to steer and will continue to steer that research in a way that I think is productive for the decisions that we need to make, particularly around programming, particularly around technology, particularly around companies that we might partner with, whether it be for seniors or for other entities. So that is a project that'll be a once a week engagement with the students. The students will be coming to the township. I'll be introducing them with Jordan and other people as well.
And there's no cost. It's basic research about what a recreation team in offerings in Michigan, West Michigan, what's out there. So it's really a high level project with college kids to help us learn more about what recreation is.
Is that something that we should do now or wait for our new Parks and Recreation Director to be involved with?
Unfortunately, you have a school year that you're dealing with. So.
When is it going to start?
It's already started.
Or today or yesterday.
Was this something,
It's not
I missed the
binding.
strategic planning, was this discussed or talked about at all?
No.
With everybody?
I don't think so. It is more administrative. Let me back up. As we talked about recreation, one of the questions I have is what else is everyone doing? And we have, my wife and I, and have used Calvin College as a resource, and it's a free resource. And so I suggested to Manager Fink, well, we could ask a group of students to do some base research, and it's literally free. And we would scope it such that it gives us knowledge, and it's a recommendation, not even recommendation, it's just base knowledge. And so we put a small proposal together, and they accepted our proposal to use it, and we talked with them this morning, and they seemed like they were nice 4 young gentlemen who are eager to help us understand the scope of what recreation is at other communities. And I think it's a nice way for us to learn what it is. Now, when the manager comes on or this director comes on, certainly he could take this document and throw it away, or he'd use it as a baseline for, moving forward. So I just thought it was a great opportunity for us to learn.
In the past, we've always kind of discussed that kind of thing as a board before.
Yeah.
Do it. I think it's a good idea. I'm not
Yeah.
saying
And
that. It's just like, did I miss something?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, it's not binding, it's just
No.
information, it's just a way for us to get information that none of the staff here has to do, and it's just it doesn't cost anything, I think it's a good idea, because do whatever you want after that.
That's true. Thanks, Joe.
So Jordan is on, and Jordan has done a fantastic job. I sent out an email this morning. Jordan and I have been working on the last 2 months together pretty regularly, almost every day, every other day, meetings, kind of getting Jordan up to speed on all the things that we've been doing and all the rec stuff that we have going on. And you can see in that email, Jordan's already got 3 or 4 bands lined up for our concert series.
Great.
She's working on a speaker series at the hangar. Just good work that she's done. We're also looking at a new logo. So we'll have a new Township Recreation logo. We're looking at some new marketing collateral. There's quite a bit of work that's being done, and Vince Boylo and his team have contracted to look at a kind of foundation, a high level document that essentially kind of outlines potentially a marketing plan for this new Parks and Rec department. So really off and running on a number of initiatives. Unfortunately, we had a password for Facebook The password is lost. I'm not gonna spend much more time trying to track it all down. We're just building a whole new Facebook page. The other things that are in the works is we've contracted for signage at Cooper Van Wieren to do park signs throughout the Cooper Van Wieren Parks Department, working with Brian Newhoff on that. And hopefully we'll get those, not hopefully, we will get those installed before spring. In addition to that, we're working on a unveiling of Cooper Van Wieren and a bike event through Velo Kids and an opening of that park to all coincide. And we've got some events at the hangar, a band that's going to be playing as well. We're all working on a number of different folks are working on the bike signage for the bike pass. That was something that was talked about probably 6 months or a year ago. The board had passed a ordinance to that effect. Minka had done a little bit of work on that. She's going to be concentrating on where the signage goes, and I'm going to work on messaging and getting them actually printed and the design and the system that we use. Again, we don't have the capacity for this kind of stuff in-house, so we'll look to either Boilo or Matt or a combination thereof to work through that. In front of you is, I believe Julie put on your dais, although I don't see it, so I'll just go ahead and say we've got our cleanup days scheduled. Saturday, May 17th from 7 to noon. July 19th from 7 to noon, and September 20th from 7 to noon. And so those cleanup days will be scheduled and will be advertised in our online newsletter. We are working hard on the Township of Excellence. One of the things that I will say is because the Township of Excellence, we've put in a request to the MTA of whether or not they feel like trustees need to have office hours. I'm actually quite thankful that you approved the phones. I didn't want to interject because Steve, Supervisor Spoolhoff, had indicated he thought it was a policy issue, but access to the electeds is something that the MTA talks about quite a bit. And so we are now asking whether or not they want trustees to have office hours. One of the things that I will encourage the supervisor, the clerk, and the treasurer to do is set regular office hours that will now be published. That is a check mark in the Township of Excellence. As I've told you before, the Township of Excellence is not necessarily aligned with government that is has a lot of professional management. It is more aligned to township structures, and so things like that in terms of office hours, accessibility are going to be going back to the basics, if you will, to be available and to be engaged with the community, which I personally think is a good thing. So I'm happy that it's there. So and we'll let the trustees know if office hours for trustees is a real thing. With that, I will tell you we are putting together 2 binders simultaneously, one for to see if there's even any shot at putting in a Township of Excellence for this upcoming year, and then building a binder for the following year. So we're working through that as well. That is all of what I had. We talked a lot at the budget meeting, so I won't belabor any of that. I will let you know that I've already started making some phone calls on some of the policy decisions that were made earlier today. And so some of that will be forthcoming.
Just to make it clear, nothing was voted on today.
Yes.
Policy decisions were made. I want it to be clear that nothing was voted on.
Correct. That's correct. Yes, just the conversation. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. All right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I shouldn't have used the word policy decision. Thank you.
All right. With that, any questions for the manager before we move on? Okay, hearing none. Public comment? But the chief would like to say something.
Yes, I'd like to make an announcement that
came in today. If you have anybody that needs a boater safety certificate, we are hosting one March 22. It will be from 8 to 4:30 at the Virginia Park Fire Station. The announcement will go on our website tomorrow. We're gonna have Julie post it. It's already up on the DNR website. There's 30 seats, and when I looked last, already one or two of the seats were already locked in. So we did that last year and it filled up right away. And so again, we're offering it for free. And the DNR came out with a train the trainer, which will be late April. And we have 6 of the people that are on the fire department going to become train the trainers. In that way, we will, that's part of our prevention program in the Marine Division, is offering these classes throughout the year at either one of the fire stations, training people on boater safety. So.
Could you repeat those dates, please?
It'll be March 22. That's
March
Saturday.
Saturday, March 22.
Yep.
You said 8 to 4:30?
8:30 in the morning till 4:30. Bring a brown bag lunch.
Okay.
And there'll be a written test, and I believe you gotta pass with 80%.
In the age minimum is,
if you have a person under 10, they have to be accompanied by an adult.
okay, all right. So, but you can get a certificate if you are 10.
Younger, but to operate a boat, it's depending on the size of the boat and motor is 12 to 15. There's regulations there.
Good.
But anybody born after, I believe it was 78, has to have a boater safety certificate.
Great.
So, and we're offering it for free. If you go online, you pay $29.50. So we got the better deal. We only right now offer one a year. Yes, our idea is once we get our own instructors here, because we're working with the sheriff department and they're teaching them all over. So I know there's 3 of them somewhere here on the north side. So in fact, we actually had to get an Allegan County sheriff to come across and teach at that location. So that's why we're getting our own instructors, and we're planning on trying to run one a month.
Great. Super. Thanks, Chief. Super. Very good. All right. Thank you. We'll close public comment. All right. Shifting to board comments and committee agency reports. I'll start on the left side. Lauren.
Fair. Things are happening there. They're signing some contracts for this up and coming year. I think they have one open day yet. It's Wednesday. They got a couple things they're working on. They're trying to choose which they want. Some bad news for the fair. A couple people know this, but not a lot of people yet. There will not be a blessing of the bikes this year.
Oh.
So just too much last year. Nobody wanted to go through with it. We're trying to get somebody else to form another committee. We'd obviously help them out and give them the grounds to use. Or I should say they would. But as of right now, they're not going to do it.
Okay.
And then I'll jump down to ZBA.
Yeah, please.
We had 2 hearings. One was approved and the other one was actually approved too, but they had to tweak it a little bit from like a 10-foot setback to a 15-foot setback. I think it was something like that. But anyway, they were both approved. So.
Super. Great. Yeah.
I put on, you're in front of you, the latest minutes. Those are approved. They say proposed, but they have been approved of the last meeting of the Max Transit. They're in the process of looking for a new director. I haven't gone to the last couple of meetings, but they've canceled a couple of meetings, but they've been very active buying new vehicles and increasing ride times. So it's been going well. They're pretty busy there. So those are the proposed minutes. The only other thing is, if you have not paid your property taxes, they are due tomorrow. Just a reminder.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, please. Go ahead.
The petition was for quite some time. I spoke at the managers conference with the person, the company, and I asked them if they had found somebody. And it's a process. Are they doing interviews?
I'm
Are we
not
getting
sure where they're
close
at.
to-
I've been out of town. So-
Okay,
And because I'm not a voting member on their board. I don't know the day to day if they have fulfilled, but I'm sure when I get the notice for the next meeting,
okay.
it'll be in there.
Super. Joe?
The resolution, regional airport. The four items, there's still a discussion with one air franchise that's from the group. And they renegotiated the contract with them. I wasn't the last meeting either, so I don't know what the results of that were. They're also working on a EV charging point in the airport for cars, but also for funds. Because that's steps. Plans. And they're in process of hiring the minister for the airport. And still working on the process.
Great. Yeah. Super. Jim? Nothing. Star?
Planning Commission, we had the shortest meeting ever, I think, that I've ever seen. It was 13 minutes.
Oh, my. Oh, my.
It was very short. There was a public hearing, a continuation of a public hearing on one item for the ODC Redlam site plan review. It is going to be a new bike park on Greenlee and 152nd Avenue. Outdoor Discovery Center is going to be creating it. The property is donated by the Mulder family. They've removed all of the blueberry plants that were there because they did run a small blueberry farm. And what will be coming our way, I'm certain, is there's no bike path that goes by the bike park. So we may have to put a bike path in near there somewhere. Yeah. And then while I've got the floor, I do want to address the late arrival of our budget meeting notes packet. In that I don't feel less than 36 hours is adequate enough for our township leadership to analyze packets and be educated enough to participate in a meeting. Granted, I was not at this afternoon's budget review on notice, but I had planned on reading through, taking notes, establishing questions and submitting them way before the meeting even occurred. And I did not get that opportunity. So I feel like I've failed a few people that voted for me. So with that, I know we're supposed to receive our packets within a certain amount of days, 7 before the meeting. Somebody, yes, no? If
policy and no such.
And if we don't, I would like to see the meeting postponed or items that are not available to put in a packet, put it on the next meeting agenda. But it is extremely important that our packets arrive to us timely.
Yep.
Okay, if I may.
Sure.
If we're gonna have that discussion, then I'm gonna suggest that we change the policy. Because 7 days it's actually quite a lot for packet distribution. And if we're gonna change the policy, then I would say I'm fine with that, but the packet usually goes out on a Thursday. And generally what ends up happening is we end up getting a lot of the stuff and staff there are times when staff don't have the ability to get it out. We often will get it out on Friday. If it comes out the following Monday, then I can accept that. But we've got to have a realistic perspective about packets, because 1 week, 7 days on a packet, it's a lot. It's significant.
And that's why I stated that if you don't have the information, put it in the next meeting. Next meeting agenda.
Well, first of all, for the budget, then you just wouldn't have had a meeting today, because I can't ask my finance director And I said this at the budget hearing, and I know you weren't here, and I understand the concern. I mean, I've been hearing this all day long, and I'm hearing it from, I now think 4 of the 7 board members. So I'm not deflecting. I promise you I'm hearing it. It all goes back to staffing. It all goes back to capacity. What I informed the board of at the budget meeting was that Connie has been here every single weekend. And I know that we have a new supervisor, we have a new board, and with a new supervisor, and this is not a criticism, it's just a reality. You have a new supervisor and you have a new board, and everybody has their new ideas and wants to involve in things and do things. And like, we just only have so much time in the day. And I can't ask my finance director if she's here every weekend. The entire year, there's only been 1 weekend she hasn't been here. And she's now working late. And when I said that at the budget meeting and I made that statement, one of the things that I got back was, well, I have to do a better job of saying, no, we don't have the staff, or present a proposal. I'm going to put it back on the board and back on the supervisor and say, it is difficult. We are still staff. And when board members come to us and want something to happen, it's not easy for us to tell our bosses. And even though collectively it's, not one of you is a boss, but collectively your bosses, it's still hard for us to say, no, we don't think that that's a priority. That's a challenging conversation to have. And so it's difficult. Like, something has to give here, folks. And so I'm hearing what you're saying, but I also want to throw it back on the board.
It's not a new idea, though. It's in the manual.
I would say this, having been on the board for 8 years now, 9 years, having been the supervisor, there are just some things that need to come up, need to be on the meeting. If it comes up 4 days before, if it is not an item that is a controversial item, I disagree with what you're saying. There's some things that just can come up that it doesn't take a lot of thought. Now, having never been on a finance hearing financial discussion, to be quite honest, today was a broad overview. We didn't get into any of the hard details. The hard details are going to come when we actually pass the budget. You're going to have a good month to sit down with Connie and go over all the questions you have. So today was just a general overview. We didn't even open our packet. Okay. So understand what you missed, okay, which was general overview, but it wasn't the nitty gritty, which you are going to get into, we're all going to get into. And if we have questions, then we can sit down with Connie while she's in her office, while she's here with her normal time, and do that. But I'll tell you, till you're sitting in that seat, there's going to be times where you just can't meet the 7 days. Otherwise, we're going to have, if we want to have 2-3 meetings a month to get things passed, because sometimes things have to be passed, then we can have 2-3 meetings a month.
We have added a second meeting a month.
What's that?
We have added a second meeting a month.
We have not a meeting that we vote at.
It's more of a work session.
We have work session. But if we want to do that, I personally don't.
Yeah.
If I can distill something in 4 days instead of 7, I'm happy not to have an extra meeting. I may get outvoted, but most, if there's a significant issue, it will get tabled. But if it's a non-significant issue, it's something that we can distill in a short period of time. That's my opinion.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Jeff. Great.
I'm done.
Done. All right. Thank you. A couple updates. I went to my first MAC meeting last week. It was actually quite fascinating to be amongst professionals in this transportation realm, as well as some of my peers from the neighboring municipalities. So it was a very interesting meeting. I'm coming up to speed. Let's just say that was a bit over my head. But one of the neat things was, as I mentioned earlier, at the budget meeting, they had a very interesting presentation about all our bike paths. And so I'll get that report to you as well. The CEP met once, not many applications. In fact, there's only one application and we approved it. And I apologize. I'll get the meeting minutes to you. It's supposed to be sent to Julie. And it didn't come in. I'd like to ask for your permission to put together a small ad hoc legislative team. One of our colleagues, Skip Keeter, has such great joy understanding what goes on in Lansing. Amanda Price, past supervisor, also has expressed interest in being involved in some manner with the township. Our past colleague Terry DeHaan has expressed interest in staying, putting his nose in. And there's another gentleman who is a lawyer, has worked in governmental issues. Dirk Blumenau has also expressed interest. I'd like your permission to put together an ad hoc committee that just ends up being eyes and ears into Lansing. I don't have enough time in my schedule to read all the MTA issues, read all the things, meet, greet at advocacy events that the chamber puts on every month. There's some people who really enjoy this. You know, listening to Bill Huizinga, I find him to be a little bit. Well, I'll just leave. There's some people who really enjoy it, and I thinking with this ad hoc team is it just becomes a group of people who could make us aware. Hey, there's an issue. There's a bill that we should all address to Nancy DeBoer. Hey, there's something that's going on, and it's just it is not binding. It's casual. We meet quarterly or as needed, and it's just more of a opportunity for folks in our community who are into it to serve. And so I like your permission to form an ad hoc team and use them as necessary. And not necessary is not the right word, but just be our eyes and ears into Lansing, which I find to be very confusing. So any comments or questions on that?
I guess I have a concern. Are they representing the township? Are they going to speak for us?
No.
They're just.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. I was very involved in the legislature too. So it's very interesting to know what goes on. I'm just worried about, them not being involved with the township every day. They have been. But yeah.
And they won't speak on behalf of us, but I think they make us aware of bills and we to show up at certain events is important to hear. I mean, we were Howard and I were at an event with the chamber and Skip was there. He loves going anyways. And it was just one of those things going like that was really important for us to hear this economic session. So anyways.
But we won't pay their membership dues.
No. No, maybe not. I don't know. I think what would happen is that, maybe, but for instance, I invited Skip to join us, Howard and I, to go to the MTA Capitol event. And we'll come back and report back. But I know the interaction with Skip along the way will be enjoyable and also informative because he leans into this stuff. I'm not asking for, this is not a formation of a formal committee, so I don't want to ask for a vote. And as Terry says, I'm gone. I mean, I'm gone until the spring, so he's not even showing up, so, but I can see us, and Amanda's gone. And so I can see us meeting 3-4 times a year. Maybe we, you mentioned you met with Jim Barry today. Maybe a couple of them meet with Jim Barry and I and you, and we just learn about county government.
One of the things that I do support in general this idea, and I will echo one of the things that often can be limiting, right? We talk about council manager forms of government and what does it mean to be in a professional managing role for a township, and most townships and cities are, but it becomes limiting because I take very seriously that I try to stay out of the politics.
And so, you know, as elected officials, it's important to be involved in some of the political advocacy, whether it be on bills or whether it be to push a particular agenda. That oftentimes I feel, you know, to a certain extent, a bit uncomfortable because I'm talking with legislators and I don't want to overstep and begin to think that I, you know, want to advocate my view of something that may not be the board's, you know, political position on a bill or something like that. So, you know, there is benefit here, even particularly at the local level as well.
The last item that I'd like to, this is the wrong time and I think it should be pushed out into a work session. And I would suggest that we do this in March is I had the opportunity prior to the mediation to talk to each of you individually, no OMA. But I asked the question about, are we going too fast, too quick, too big on the building? And all of you independently said some interesting things and affirmed the direction of smaller, slower, and more deliberate in our decision making on this significant building. And so I'm consolidating all of your thoughts into a strong suggestion that we pause the RFQ process until we have a director of recreation. We have a plan going forward. We feel a bit more comfortable about funding. We feel a bit more comfortable. Jan, this year, you said, why don't we just do what we do just better? And I echo that from what you said this afternoon. Jim, you said, is there even grants that we should go after? Why don't we build up our fund balances and just kind of be steady for a year? You know, we got a pickleball complex that could be run better and we're going to run it better, you know, based on what manager Fink has moved forward with another person. And my sense is that the RFQ process is putting us down a path that puts a lot of pressure on this board to do something in 2025 that we don't need to do. And I would just like to pause it and revisit it. In our strategic planning session, we said, oh, we're going to listen and learn and kind of, you know, feel what the mood is. But I just don't want us to get over our skis and have this RFQ come back and all the publicity or the noise about this RFQ. And we have a very large project that we all are quietly apprehensive about putting in front of the electorate and asking them to vote and raise their taxes on this deal. And we haven't proven ourselves as a effective and active recreation community. And so I would just like to pause this project this year and just do what we do well and revisit it much later.
And just so the public knows, it's about the proposed new community building.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. Thanks for clarifying that note. So I know it's absolutely the wrong time at 9:22 to take this up. And we can push it off into a March discussion, work session. But we're in the middle of this RFQ process, and I feel the pressure to be dealing with our potential vendors or contractors with integrity. And I feel that we're unduly stretching our relationship with potential contractors who could serve us in the future if we aren't intent on going forward with this big project. And what I heard from you and what I sense in my heart is that it's a not yet project. Not ever, but not yet. And the size and the scope has yet to be determined, in my opinion, and what I heard from your colleagues in private conversations. So again, 9:24 is the wrong time to talk about this, but could I see a couple nods, but is there a consensus to pause this process before we get over our skis?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I have a meeting. I anticipated some movement on something. I have a meeting with Len Pallon tomorrow. And I was going to ask him how to pause it and also do it well and respectfully. And with your permission, I will report back to you how that goes. I just appreciate your, and we're not voting on something. We haven't spent any money, but we are talking about a direction that is substantial.
We did approve, contract with Glenn, though, how's that gonna work?
That
This is the first time hearing this, like.
I heard inklings of it, but I've not thought through the answer. But just off the cuff, I would say that he was approved to create the RFP. He created the RFP. He's done the vast majority of the work to perform the RFP. It would be, in my opinion, the ethical thing to do to pay him completely, regardless of us pausing. We have that document, and I think as we move forward in a few years or 1 year or 2 years, I actually think that there's probably some improvement to that RFP that can be created to facilitate some of what Trustee Spoolhoff and I and others has been jabbering about in terms of size and modularity and things of that nature.
and just overall cost.
And overall cost, yeah. So,
I mean,
yeah, no, I think ethically you have to pay him.
Yeah, and he might, honestly, I think most of what he has done is done.
Yeah.
I mean, he's good. So, all right, so with that, I appreciate that, and I will report back to the board on his reaction to that. So thank you. All right, any other comments to finish the meeting? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Sorry, that's good. Oh, yeah, it was just the document that was in your agenda. There's review. I thought it was just good information. I will be gone at the regular third meeting next week, Thursday, for another thing in Florida. If you're available, I had suggested to Manager Fink and a couple colleagues, if you want to take a tour of the Coast Guard Station next week, Thursday, that probably could be arranged. And it'd be just a fun thing to do to see what we will buy next week, if you want to do that. And I just throw that out as a suggestion, and I'll let Manager Fink coordinate that if there is interest to meet over there. It doesn't take very long to take a tour. This is about probably a half hour, and you're seeing every corner in a half hour. So, all right, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Thank you, John. All right, thanks, Shar. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye, thank you.